Hello, and we welcome you all to the 10th webinar of the year on circular economy on the topic circular economy policies and economic sustainability, which is being brought to you by Ecocivilization in association with 𝐕𝐺 Women. My name is Rajni Vohra. I'm founder of 𝐕𝐺 Women, and I'm being joined by a very illustrious leader who is also founder and curator of Ecocivilization, Honorable former Deputy Prime Minister of Slovenia and EU Transport Commissioner Violeta Bulc, and my co-host Natasha. Unquestionably, the circular economy, the whole idea of circular economy builds economic, natural, and social capital. Circular economy models highlight business opportunities even for what is treated as waste by most of us, which is considered a resource and always brought back into the mainstream economy. However, to discuss in depth the extent to which the role of government policies come into play to support the CE concept in a society that can drive the demand of circular economy products and influence the way businesses operate, we today have with us the diverse range of leading experts, 3 panel speakers from different parts of the world who will enlighten us in a short while from now. And Natasha, if we are ready to go ahead, if Violeta, you don't see Violeta, can we start with the presentations?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so without any further ado, let me introduce our first speaker of the day, Melissa Kapcha, who holds a master's degree in sustainability, society and the environment from the University of Kiel in Germany. She has more than 10 years of working experience on environmental projects. Since 2014, she has been working on promoting projects to tackle climate change at the city level. She has experience of promoting the circular perspective in different sectors as construction, food, and e-waste. So, Melissa, I'm feeling really excited and really honored to invite you here. So, please, it's over to you. We are ready to hear you.
Thank you very much, Rajni. And let me share first my screen to have a. Is everything fine now with my screen? Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much for the invitation, firstly. And yes, I'm very happy and also very curious to know from the other's perspective about the experience working in circular economy. As you described, yeah, I have experience working in the environmental sector, and lately in the circular economy. I've been working in the past 4 years or 5, I guess, trying to promote plans and strategies for some subnational and local governments in Latin America and also in Germany, where I'm studying and just finished my master's program. And yeah, I'm very happy and to share what I have learned, and also I'm very happy to receive I will be very happy to receive your questions and some ideas that you can exchange with me to make this enrich conversation. My name is Melissa Kapcha. I am environmental engineer. I study in Peru. I'm Peruvian actually, but in 2018 I moved to Germany to start my master's program, and which is in the area of sustainability. And with it, I've been working also in participation and like promoting policies in the climate arena too. And yeah, so just briefly, I would like to start sharing some insights about why circular economy, why we need to discuss about that in these current times, and why it's important to spread it in every kind of sector, but not just in a specific sector, but everywhere. It can be applied in the political level, in the technical level, and in the production and consumption sector. And so it is important to keep aligned what is the main importance about this concept. So basically, I don't want to say that we are in a system where we are in a linear economy. I guess in the past 5-7 years, we've been working through this transition from linear to circular. So what we are not anymore, I guess, in the linear economy. What is the linear economy? Is this a system where you exploit the resource, take the resources, natural resources, and make a product out of it, and then just dispose it. So this is the main concept of how the linear economy works. And I don't want to say that we are now anymore in this system, because I saw many activities, many initiatives going on everywhere, not just in the developed countries, but also in the developing countries. So that's why I guess we are now a step ahead of this system. But why is it still important to remind everyone that the circular economy must be implemented in everywhere? So what is firstly the circular economy? The circular economy is the system where we start from, of course, the exploitation of the material, the natural material to natural resources to produce something. But after consuming, for example, when we talk about biological materials, we can still go again in the circle and enrich it and create out of it a new material. And when we talk about technical materials, after producing a product out of the natural resource, we can use it, but also we can return it. And then we can create secondary materials or create a new material that can have the same composition, the same abilities that the main material that you produce. So this is the difference. And why is important circular economy? Again, because in this sense, we are not exploiting and then discarding. We are now finding other possibilities how we can maintain or extend the life cycle of the product. So you are, in that sense, reducing cost in the life cycle of material, and also you are promoting the reduction of the waste, of course, the reduction of emissions, which is important now because we are now suffering about climate change. And this is also another opportunity that you can, as a company, or as a product, a company that are selling a product or a service, can find as opportunity to reduce costs, to reduce the emissions of the greenhouse gas, CO2, and so on. And now I want to now go down and talk about one specific example. Why I chose this construction sector, because I have experience working in construction sector, and I want to now clarify and put into practice these concepts, linear and the circular. So currently, we mostly in the developed countries like Germany and most of the European countries, you see this value change in the construction sector. For example, we start with the construction of one building, or let's call it a building from the residential or non-residential sector. So residential sector is for living, for dwelling, but non-residential can be a school, a hospital, and port, infrastructures in general. So after it, what happened? You usually demolish. And what is happening after the demolition of this? In most of the European countries, I saw that there is a downcycling approach. What does it mean, downcycling? That you take the materials that you found after demolition, and then you use it for another purpose. But in this case, why is downcycling? Because it's a low quality recovery. Because you just basically choose some materials that can be optional for producing a new material, and mostly what is the part of how is ending this material. For example, currently filling materials for infrastructure projects. So fulfilling roads and mainly this activity in Germany, for example. And why is downcycling? Because what I said, it is a low quality recovery. There is no enriched processes happening between these, and therefore there is no use of the maximal potential of the materials. And that is one big problem, because out of the construction and demolition waste, there are plenty of opportunities that you can find to recover and create a new product that can be useful for build a new infrastructure. So this is the main idea how the construction sector is now in most of the developed countries. But I need to say it, that there is also another cases. For example, in Germany or in some countries in the East specific, especially, there is still happening land filling. Land filling is something that we in most of the countries are trying to ban because it's super dangerous, it's contaminating, polluting environment, and is going like in that another direction that's circular. Because what is landfill is just take the source and put it in a space where you are not using anymore for any kind of purpose. So this is one negative side. And what are the negative points of downcycling, or let's call it like landfilling? You are not producing anything else out of it, so that's why there is no economical revenues out of it. You are polluting the environment, polluting the ground, because there are so many cases that there are no specific measures taken part of it. So this is a very toxic way of how to manage between. It's not specifically managing, but it's what is happening. So this is something that we need to avoid. I didn't put it in this graphic because I assume that there are many countries that are implementing in their policies the banning of landfilling, because it's nothing that we must maintain in our system now, because it's totally out of the idea of what the circular economy wants to implement. And for example, when we talk about the circular economy in the construction sector, what we can see if we talk about circular economy in the construction sector, after the construction of a building, any infrastructure in general. So what is happening? Demolition. But what can be also another opportunity that we can implement a part of demolition? For example, we can think about disassembly, or find another opportunities to use the building for another purposes, but in the long term, avoiding demolition. That is also not a good practice. And then what is the another next step? After we have the construction and demolition waste, we can implement collection and sorting. Currently, it's happening. There are many activities for collection and sorting, but if we think about high methodologies for collection and sorting, we can take out 100%, almost 100% of the materials that are embedded in the construction and demolition waste, like plastic, plaster, and cement, and all of the materials that you can find in the construction sector, and use wisely for producing a new one, a new product out of it. Then what is the next step? For example, we now know that concrete, bricks, tiles, and ceramics are the easiest ways, the easiest products that you can recover out of the demolition of disassembly specifically. And then if we again practice high quality recycling methodologies, and also specific techniques and machinery to recover materials, then you can use like in a very efficient way these materials, and then have a high quality recycled cement or aggregate or sand. We know now that in the market, on the construction sector, that these materials that we are now talking, like sand, aggregates for producing new cement, are very now scarce, but also very expensive. So if we now just use these small changes, or we really think out of the box to implement new methodologies and techniques, we are thinking about more than 50%, 60% on revenues out of this. 70%, you can even create a new market, because this is a new trend that is increasing, is growing very, very fast. And there are many, many opportunities that you can find, especially in the developing countries, because you know that what is the context. Developing countries now are growing fast. They are now not just growing in terms of population, but in parallel to population, they are building new infrastructure more and more. So there's a huge potential to implement the circular economy thinking and avoid for the future problems that what we have here in the European countries, for example, because we lived in the past hundreds of years in the linear economy, but now we know that there is a circular economy that can be an opportunity for everyone. So let's make this. Let's take these opportunities, the learnings that we have in the developed countries, to let them in the developing countries use it and really produce and construct in a very efficient way. And now I will talk about some political and economical points that we can take out of this construction sector. For example, when we talk about Germany or most of the European countries, we now know that there is a very huge enforcement of the waste directives or frameworks. For example, talking specifically in Germany, there is a waste framework directive that target for the 2020, so 1 year ago, that at least 70% of the construction and demolition waste should be recovered in a very efficient way. So, for example, we now, if you talk about efficient way, then you must think that there is no way to use landfills. So this is one very important point that was set for the last year here in Germany. There is like a very huge advance progress in the avoiding of landfill, because it's, as I just described, is very toxic for the environment and also not efficient in the terms of recovering of material. And then, but however, even if we have this very, very powerful directive, still there are some activities that are not really connected to what is happening or implemented in the real life. So that's why this new year, there are new laws going out in the European Parliament that are trying to fill this gap of the 30% that is remaining to really have 100% of landfill banning in the European Union. And then this is something important that every company, and also not just companies who are working in the construction sector, but everyone in the subnational and local level and the national level in every country should take into account that we need to really see what is going on in the new laws in order to implement something that are mitigating these problems and also finding opportunities and new markets to implement or to find revenues out of it. Then when we talk about there are also new laws that are taking care more about the environment. Now with the problem about climate change, yes, but also we need to know that laws are made for people, so people-centered laws, in order to save the quality of their lives, save the quality of the ecosystems that are surrounding our livelihoods. So, for example, in Germany, we have the Umbrella Ordinance that is is part of the Circular Economy Act, which is trying to avoid or ban pollution in the reservoir of water and also land, which is important because when we talk about landfills or activities to fill the roads or areas for construction, you are basically using materials that can be damaged or dangerous for the environment. So this is also important when we, for the political level, we need to, in parallel to avoid pollution or also reduction of the economical revenues for the country, you need to also think about the quality of the life of people and ecosystems. Another point that I want to just close this part of the political level and the economical is the context what we live now on. So we live in a country or in the planet when we are suffering about the scarcity of materials. So natural resources are very scarce, and we know people from India, people from China, especially Brazil, US should know how much the problem of the scarcity of materials are producing in our economies, because we cannot really maintain our level of production if we have problems with rare metals and many other products. So therefore, we need to think that the circular economy can be a partner in this situation, because with circular economy, you are using wisely materials, or yes, natural resources also can be taken from the materials that were already built and create a new one out of it. So you are really extending the life of any product that you are using in the production of a material. So this is important for this to tackle this problem. And also we need to remind landfilling is nothing that we need to maintain in our system. So we should pursue as a government how to ban landfilling in every, not just for construction and demolition waste, but for every kind of product of sector. And also another thing that I noticed here in Germany is the high prices that that exist for like recycling, construction and demolition waste. So why is this can sound not logic what I explained, but you know, as I said, in Germany we still have problems to recover 100% of the materials that are embedded in the construction and demolition stream. So therefore, if the country, the municipality and the recycling companies implement high quality and also recover materials from the very first part, like let's say sorting materials, then you will have a reduction of cost at the end, because you are really implementing or recovering the materials the maximum possible. So at the end, if you are scaling up this system, you will find less reduction in the cost of the process, but at the end also increasing of the revenues that you will have from the process that you will implement new in the let's say in the recycling facilities, but also in all the value change that you can have in the construction sector. Another point from the environmental and social levels, when we talk about circular economy, also, as I just briefly said, we are really tackling the problem of emissions, because new production is more, therefore is connected to emissions. So now we are living in a planet where we really we need to switch this behavior of buy and dispose. So because why is happening? Because more production of materials, more use of services are producing more emissions, and these emissions is dangerous, because we now are increasing the problem of the climate change. And then if we implement circular economy, then we are really tackling this problem, because we are really reducing the emissions, reducing the consumption of materials, reducing the problems that we can create in an ecosystem. So for example, in Germany, we have now the European Green Deal that is totally related to the reduction of the emission, and even thinking about going net zero emission to 2050, but in Germany 2045. So this is not a big big step that Germany took last year, and then Germany needs to align all the processes that have in the country and also in the countries abroad in order to reduce the emissions that they are producing per year in all the senses. So here is a huge opportunity to implement circular economy, as well for the Paris Agreement. That is a law, kind of law, because now we have we have an agreement that needs to be going in parallel with all the activities that you are promoting for the country. So what is the Paris Agreement? Is this agreement that every nation in the world signed it in 2015. In this, and what is going afterwards? So with this agreement, every country is basically agreeing on reduction of the emissions of the greenhouse gases, but also promote adaptation programs for tackling climate change. So again, we are talking about a reduction of emissions, which is related to the European Green Deal and therefore to the Circular Economy Act or circular economy thinking. Then we have also the Sustainable Development Goals. Many of you must probably heard about the Sustainable Development Goals that is aligned to every section or sector in our country or every level. So for example, we talk about circular economy implementation. We are tackling problems like the Sustainable Development Goal number 7, that is related to sustainable consumption and production. Sustainable Development 11, that is connected to sustainable cities, sustainable nations. The 12 and the 13 that are more connected to the ecosystems, the land, and also climate change, tackling climate change. And the 17, which is for me one of the most important, that is collaboration between partnerships. When we talk about climate change and we talk about circular economy, we should be very careful, but also we need to really consider the partnership and the collaboration that can exist among the partners, because it's not matter of the political level or the environmental sector or the economical sector, it's matter of everyone. Because if you might know, probably when we talk about circular economy, we must talk about how to collaborate with the society, because they are the ones who are going to implement every directive or every policy that we as a country have. So therefore, we need to talk and act and collaborate with the civil society, with the research institutions, with the private companies, the public institutions, and everyone in general. So this is very important. And also, there are positive things, like new jobs, because of the green thinking that we are now implemented with the Paris Agreement and all the European laws that are related to the emission reduction. We are creating a huge opportunity to create jobs, and jobs that are necessary for many countries. Even Germany have a gap in terms of jobs. So green jobs can be an opportunity to promote and include people that have new capabilities and new ideas how to reduce emission, and in the same way create revenues out of it. And it's connected to health conditions, and it's also important the increase of the awareness in the society, because if people, as I said, are not aware of the problem, that climate change is an issue, that the scarcity of materials is an issue, so then even all the laws possible are not going to really make any sense if they are not educated and they are not aware of the situation. And finally, it's important to talk about transparency. Why transparency? Because if we don't know how my system is working, then this is a very difficult way how to really create solutions to tackle problems, like in the construction sector, for example. Why I talk about transparency in the construction sector? Because there are problems when you declare demolition there are problems when you declare renovation activities. And why it's important to know that? Because if my municipality of my country wants to create solutions for demolition and construction and demolition problem in my cities, because you probably not have an idea what is happening with the construction and demolition waste. In the countries like in Germany, it's not allowed to just dispose anywhere your construction and demolition waste. But I saw in countries like in Peru, where I come from, demolition waste is abandoned in places that the government is not possible to really monitor where they are going. So this is a problem, because if you don't know how much materials are embedded in your nation or in your city, then how you are going to create the capacity of your facilities. So transparency is a very important point that has to be included in the political level, and also create mechanisms how to trace the materials that are in the construction sector. Therefore, one solution can be materials passport. If you have know about this term, you must check how it's working. It's a very well opportunity how to really trace the materials that are embedded in your construction. And also, if we talk about research, we really need to enforce the collaboration between research institutions with the public sector, with the private sector, in order to create reliable information. Because without information, without data, it's impossible to see how we can really use wisely the materials that are in the construction sector. And another point that I just want to close, for example, when we talk about new niche for markets, when we talk about green jobs, we really need to include what are the technologies that exist, what are the economic and social benefits or even issues, in order to really implement and have a clear panorama about what is going on. And collaboration, finally, collaboration between academia, private companies is important. Public authorities and consumers is completely important. We cannot really implement a circular economy solution if you don't involve people on that, because you create laws, you create products for consumers, for people. So people need to be really connected to what you are discussing about, and how you really want to tackle, or which product you want to create, in order that sense what is the mentality, what is the status quo of the situation of the sense that you have in order to tackle. So with this, thanks for your attention, and please, if you have questions, I will be very happy to respond.
Thank you so much, Melissa, for such a brilliant and insightful presentation. Since you focused most of the part of your presentation on construction industry and landfilling problem, so here's a question we have for you related to construction industry only. And the question is, are standards in construction industry trying to address circular needs? If no, who would be the right stakeholder to take it further?
Okay, yeah, it is very important, this question, because from my understanding and also my experience, I know that this is a very difficult this is a difficult thing, because people really, as me, have many barriers in our mind. People think about, no, a secondary material is not, it does not necessarily has to have the same qualities of a new material. So this thinking starts to really go against the circular idea, because if you don't believe that one product can replace a secondary product, can replace a new product, then you are really creating barriers. You know, you think, no, it's not, I prefer to buy new, I prefer to choose that instead of that. So that's why I really like to repeat and repeat that we as a consumer must be aware of what is the situation and what is the context, and also what are the really what matters in a product. This capacity, this, for example, when we talk about concrete, for example, that is one of the most polluters products. So there are many options that you can choose instead of buying a new one. And with what is important, that's why, that consumers work closely with the private sector, because the private sector also needs to really clear the panorama. They need to tell us, we have this new product, is a green product, it's a secondary product, but has this ABC quality characteristics that are really similar or are the same quality of the new one. So come on, you need to trust. I know that it has to happen some years. It's not just from one year to another, but we need to start on that. And I guess campaigns of communicational campaigns, educational campaigns are important to really help the consumer trust on this new idea of recycling, recovering, in order to really implement the circular economy and go even beyond.
Thank you so much, Marisa. We may have few more questions for you, so please stay with us till the end of the session, because we have 2 more presentations coming up. We hope you can make it. So please stay with us. Thank you so much once again. And it's time to invite our next speaker, Nesda. Andre joined 𝐒𝐤𝐻 in 2014. In his work, he focuses on climate policy, international trade, industrial policy, and transition to low carbon economy as well as green budget reform. He has been a member of several governmental working groups such as Trade, Green Budget Reform, and a member of the President's Advisory Committee on Climate Change. So we welcome you wholeheartedly, Andre, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, and thank you for the invitation. As Rajni has already put it, I work for 𝐒𝐤𝐻, and one of the things we've been looking into in the last couple of years is also industrial production in Slovenia. We came about that from a different angle or a different perspective. For us, it was at that point more important to look at the energy use in Slovenia because of some specific relevance that was to constructing hydropower plants in Slovenia and how this would impact nature. But when starting to look a bit more into the industrial sector in Slovenia and how to decarbonize it, how to decrease its energy consumption, etc., we of course came also to the conclusion that we need to look at the resource side of industry production as well. So I'm going to share a short presentation that I've prepared so that you can follow more easily. And basically, just give me a sec. Super. So as said, we've been looking a lot at how the industrial sector is, what the industrial sector is consisted of in Slovenia, and we realized that it's that when compared to the rest of the EU, Slovenia has a very high share of energy-intensive industry and industry in general within its economic structure. So basically, our economy is highly consisted of energy-intensive industries. And this, of course, also relates then to the energy use and materials use in Slovenia. And despite the fact that Slovenia is very small, especially compared to India, we also have to do our homework, of course. Everybody has to do it. So we were trying to see what could be done in this sector. And also we've noticed that industrial decarbonization is something that's relatively neglected in the political policy discussions, and also perhaps even among civil society organizations. So it's definitely something that we must not overlook, and something that we must work on just as well if we want to reach a sustainable path for our future. Now, this graph unfortunately is in Slovenian, but it basically tells us that Slovenia is ranking 3rd in European Union when looking at how much energy intensive industries there is within our economy. So in a way, for Slovenia, it's also an economic imperative to transform its industry if we want to have a future-proof economy, if I can put it that way. And on the other hand, as I have already mentioned, the use of energy, use of materials is, because of the high amount of primary production materials industry in Slovenia, very high. The graph on the left shows you the energy use, and you can see that the first 4 columns are very high, and these are all energy intensive industries. It's basically metals production, paper production, construction materials, and chemicals industry. And looking into the industrial sector, we see that much of the energy and materials use is of course concentrated in these 4 sectors. So we thought that this is something that we should address specifically, because in essence, we're talking about 50, 60 companies in Slovenia, where we need to have an agreement, a vision, if you want, on how to transform these industries, these sectors, so that they would, first off, decarbonize, second, dematerialize, basically decreasing their resource production use or production, and thirdly, also how to stop the pollution that's currently going on from their production processes, because we also have certain local areas that are highly polluted because of industrial activities there. And this is also something that the European Commission now is setting up within the before mentioned European Green Deal. There is the Zero Pollution Action Plan, there's the Circular Economy Action Plan, there's the Industrial Strategy. So there's really a lot going on the policy level currently, or at least the debates are intensifying. And we'll get to this a bit later on. But here, what I really want you to understand is that for Slovenia, it's important because we have a lot of energy intensive industry, and there the energy use is high and it's really concentrated. So in a way, we could also look at this as, if we reach an agreement or a plan for these 50 companies, this is something that potentially is perhaps easier to do than to decarbonize the entire state. In terms of numbers, the number of stakeholders is relatively small. But on the other hand, the governance or the policy reality in Slovenia is that currently we're lacking some effective policy that would steer the industry towards decarbonization, towards circular economy. Here I have a table, again, unfortunately in Slovenian, where a research institute has assessed previous policies in the economic sector and how they contribute to encouraging the businesses to go into a low carbon society. And as you can imagine, red is negative, and you see there's a whole lot of red. So there's very little relevance and effect of these policies on actually steering our economy towards decarbonization. And here we're talking specifically about the business community, not only the industrial one, but also the SMEs. Now, as I've mentioned, there's quite a lot of policy dialogue and happenings at the EU level currently. Just recently, we had the updated EU industrial strategy. We now have a very fresh so-called transition pathways approach, where the industry is supposed to take the lead and have their say on how to shape their future transition pathways. Of course, with all other stakeholders, be it national political ones or civil society organizations, research institutes, etc., etc., etc. And on top, we have the initiatives such as the Circular Economy Action Plan and the Sustainable Products Initiative, which is one of the more recent, and it's also quite extensive and elaborate. And something that was also mentioned as well, the so-called digital passports or digital twins, where one can get a passport, or at least some sort of a digital document that explains how a certain product is, what's it made of, how you can decompose it, how which materials are used, how you can recycle them, how you can potentially repair them, reuse them, and things like that. So it's the information that was mentioned before that is really vital and important here, so that you can, at the expected end life, use those materials again with the least problems or guessing as much as possible. And what we're also seeing is the third element that's really also beneficial or optimistic is that the business sector is also coming more and more on board with these policies stronger. Unfortunately, perhaps not yet in Slovenia that much, at least when it comes to the relevant representative bodies. But we do see that at the level of individual companies, there's also quite a lot of things going on, and some of them are inspiring, be it in terms of circularity or at least in terms of fuel switch, which is basically a first step, but still it is a step forward. But when looking at all these policies and all the projections made, one has to ask whether this is enough. And we see that the current projections say that if we go on as we are going on about today, we will still double our resource use by 2050. We would by then need 3 planets to support all of that. And the pollution coming from our industrial production would still be very much relevant and high. And as you can see here, and this is copied from a European Commission's document, the impacts of resources extraction are really vast and huge, and they amount to roughly half of all GHG emissions today, and cause more than 90% of all biodiversity loss and water stress. So it's really something that we need to address. As said, it's not only about decarbonization, it's also about dematerialization and the impacts that we have on pollution of our resources. So in our view, here I took a chart where you can see, basically, I think it sums up quite nicely all the approaches that are known or are set to be utilized in the transition towards a circular economy. But in our view, there's quite a lot of hype, but unfortunately still little action. And I don't want to be pessimistic here or bring anybody down, because I know it's important to have this optimistic approach, and we totally agree with that. But we see that in action, or in actuality, there's not that much going on the ground as we would need to, or we really need to scale things up to move things forward. And it's not just and we need to shift away from only what the prevailing discourse today is, which talks about recycling or incineration, even in Slovenia. And we need to move beyond or past that. And in that sense, we're currently, politically speaking, and even economically, failing in the implementation of these other approaches within the circular economy, be it design, the design stage, where you have much of potential to decrease the usage of materials and the energy consumption, etc., extending the lifespan of products, and which is perhaps even most important, is transitioning to different business models. And here we feel that this could be also a game changer in a sense, unlocking much of the potential that the circular economy can bring if we implement it properly. Here I copied a chart from a material economics study, where we can see that the gains of transitioning to a circular economy could even cut the emissions by half up until 2050. But that is, of course, only if we deploy that effectively. And here I would like to emphasize in particularly the circular business models, where you can see that some quarter of these decreased emissions could come from this action. And it's something that's currently quite a lot neglected, at least in our opinion, in the business community, where the prevalent discourse is still about traditional recycling, fuel switch, hydrogen, carbon capture and storage, and things like that. Whereas these approaches that are perhaps more further down the line are still being neglected. And specifically, for instance, and this one is where one of my favorites is car sharing. So talking about a circular economy, of course, we're going to share our things, we're going to own less and less things, and we're going to share them more and more. And transport or mobility, or specifically cars, being one of the products that impacts hugely on the amounts of resources claimed, be it aluminum, be it steel, be it other materials. We were wondering how much a transition to a serious sharing scheme of car sharing, basically, how much that would impact the use of materials and all the other indicators. And we see here that, again, this is material economics study that was doing these assessments. Roughly 70% of emissions or CO2 impacts related to the material use could be avoided if this was deployed in its full potential. And we see that this is really a big opportunity. And the correlating benefits of this are also high, be it total cost of ownership of having a car, and other externalities, be it, I don't know, road building, infrastructure building in general, traffic jams, the lost time you lose in staying there, the air pollution and things like that, etc., etc. So the impacts here really are potentially big, but we need to deploy them. And this is something that we're currently lacking. And in our view, it's most on one of the most relevant stakeholders here are, of course, politics that can generate policies that would further spur such developments. And this is currently strongly lacking today, in our opinion. And this is a graph that was stolen, to quote, or borrowed or shared from a student from Sweden, which was exactly, I think, really sums up nicely this transition to circularity currently being about closing the flows, so basically creating them circular, closing the loops, extending the extending the time materials are in use, basically extending the lifespan of certain different products. But on the other hand, what we're missing, and this is where the car sharing scheme, for instance, was a good case to show, is how to narrow down these flows. Because again, despite all these policies, all the projections claim that material use will only increase throughout time. And this is obviously something running counter our aims, because we understand today that we're on the brink of a collapse, of an ecosystemic collapse, and that we cannot continue with these intense resource extractions, energy use, etc., etc., etc. And currently, the prevailing discourse within the circular economy still, at least the political and economic one, is still much about closing the circles, the loops, and extending the lifetime, but not about decreasing the amount of materials used, narrowing the flows. And just recently, the EU industrial strategy that was proposed by the European Commission, we've looked at several umbrella non-governmental organizations in Europe, their response to this document. And we saw that they were all very consistent in saying that we need to cut down our resource use. And this is currently not happening with the proposed plans. And I think that this statement from Davide Sabadin really sums it up nicely, saying that you cannot bend a value chain that is too thick. And I think that this really nicely puts into words what we need to do. It's not just about creating a circular value chain, we also need to make it lose some weight, to put it in in layman terms. And again, here another think tank, 𝐒𝐢𝐦𝐫𝐚𝐧, saying that the narrative is solid, but again saying that on the demand side, there is a missing link of not linking up the industrial production with the demand side, because on the one hand, industry needs to do their job, but we also need to look on what's going on the other end. And here we're talking about, be it construction, be it mobility, be it food consumption, so many sectors that we need to address, and where we need to look at what we can do about the demand, because it's obvious that we don't have enough resources to support everybody's, I'd say, ambitions, or we can address our needs, but not our wishes. So, and currently all these wishes are just too hyper consumeristic, etc. And we need to look at that and how we can address that. And mobility and construction, as mentioned, is one of the most potentially promising sectors right now. I would end it with this. Thank you for your attention, and if there are any questions, happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Okay, I hope you can hear me. Yeah. Thank you so much, Andrew, for your giving very candid perspective about circular economy and the state of circular economy. We really appreciate it, and very insightful presentation. I think there's a question for you. So, Natasha, can you read out this question, please? Okay, no problem.
Maybe I can raise it directly, Andrei.
Yes.
Well, it's been a really good overview, and I was wondering, what do you think can move people also to more decisive actions? I mean, people in business, people in private lives, people in politics, in research. Basically, what we need is really this inner call just to do the right thing. What do you think can move us?
I think that different stuff resonates to different people. So you can't address everybody with the same messaging, I would say. But I'm really happy to see that there are entrepreneurs already today that are doing their businesses not for the sake of the business, but for the sake of, I don't know, enabling something within their community, trying to give something back or to help it prosper. With politics, I think it's a more tough nut. And I'm afraid that there's still quite a lot of this mentality of increasing their capital flows, creating more profits and things like that. And this really is a big hinder today, if you ask me. And when it comes to the ordinary Joe, if I can put it like that, I think that once they will get the chance to really live such a life for a while and experience the benefits of it, and the fact that this is a far more quality way of living their lives, it's something that will convince them immediately. Be it having more time for their, I don't know, hobbies, families, things like that from 𝕤𝕤𝕤, be it from having more in mobility terms, instead of their cars, on trains, reading, I don't know, newspapers, talking to the guy sitting next to them, and things like that. So it's, on the one hand, we need to experience it. We didn't experience it really. And on the other hand, we need to start thinking less about money.
Maybe just another, Ranji, just quick comment, because we had maybe 1 or 2 sessions ago, a really excellent presentation about non-for-profit business. And that was, it's somehow sort of this, they're seducing each other, circular economy and non-for-profit. So can you see from your perspective, mostly this NGO world and also circular economy world, can you see this concept kind of walking hand in hand together in the future?
Yes, but I'm more not scared, but questioning how distant this future is. But I think we're slowly transiting there. But hopefully it will speed up a little bit.
Andre, we have few more questions for you, but before that, we would like to invite our third speaker. Due to some reasons, she has to leave early. So please stay with us, Andre, and thank you so much once again for wonderful presentation. And here we have our third speaker. It's coming from India, Simran Kaur. Simran is a recent law graduate from the University Institute of Legal Studies, Panjab University, and was the former program associate at Citizens for Public Leadership. She considers strong research skills and having an interdisciplinary approach as a key to progressive advocacy. She's a lawyer by profession as well as volunteer as a freelance journalist. She's a passionate reader and a writer with strong aspirations for working at the intersection of law and public policy. Simran worked as a research assistant with Violeta Bulc from August to November 2021 on environment, climate change, and circular economy. So let's invite Simran.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, I was just sharing my screen. I hope it's visible to everyone. Is my screen visible?
Yeah, but just directory.
Oh, I'm just opening my PPT. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Simran, and thank you so much for this really generous and humble introduction. I really have to work a lot harder than this. And most importantly, thank you so much for the amazing panelists who devoted such time to on such an intense subject and going into the complexities and going into different sectors, talking about circular economy, and that too in such a transformative, progressive way, and raising pertinent questions about the challenges ahead. I hope my screen is visible now. Even if it's not okay. It was a presentation that I had submitted earlier, so I'll be speaking from it as well as the research that I had done in extension of that.
Can you stop sharing, Simran, please? Because all we see is your directory.
Okay, now I've stopped sharing it. So, circular economy, policies and economic sustainability. My experience and research with circular economy and understanding about its application in India made me realize that circular economy as a political, as an economic, and as a socio-economic system helps us as citizens understand economics in different way and helps us to interpret the system of economics and the way the life systems operate in as per our own understanding. And circular economy as a whole helps us create our own versions, and as we envisage the world to be fair and the environment to be more protected, to be for the environment to be more clean. I think circular economy is something that cannot exist in isolation. It is not a monolithic entity. Something that is being made very clear from the presentations as well, from the international position on it, from different countries taking their own approaches to circular economy, whether it is undertaking change in different sectors, whether it is revolutionizing the way the production system is coming about. So there are different elements, there are different features that characterize the concept that circular economy is. While India's stance on circular economy is characterized by the public policy decisions and the programs that the government has introduced, even way back in 2017, when the government of India decided that there should be a ban on the single use of plastic by the year 2022. Why it purposely chose single use plastic? Because those are the plastics that contribute the most towards the waste generated and the dumplings that are outside of the major cities, causing havoc when it comes to environmental damages and damage done to the ecosystem at large. That in a way speaks a lot about India's capacity to recycle plastic, which as per many reports is touted as one of the best in the world. But then there are so many other parameters on which there it makes it clear that how dire and how immediate and necessitated the introduction of circular economy as a whole in India is, is needed. There are many challenges of circular economy ahead of us, but I'll be touching upon that perhaps later and talking about the substance and the nuance and the procedure that is involved in circular economy as a large. I've already talked about recycling capacity. I feel that circular economy as a whole cannot exist in isolation, which is why things like sound urban planning is something that lies at the heart of circular economy. The concept of equity, the concept of equitable living, the concept of efficiency is something that lies at the heart of circular economy as a large. And when we're talking about policies, when we're talking about economic sustainability, we're talking about policies that are long-term, that manage to strike a balance between the economic growth of different sectors versus those very sectors contributing to a balanced form of system in which environment is equally protected. And then there's a system where products, where things are being introduced into the environment and then being recycled and being given back. And that's exactly what the entire basis of circular economy is. There has to be market access of all. There has to be accessibility. There has to be acceptability of different kind of professions or jobs that generate post the introduction of circular economy. Now that's the funny thing, like circular economy is not something that can be introduced with a stroke of a public policy or with the stroke of a single legislation. It is something that happens gradually. It is something in which different forms of stakeholders are involved. It is something that happens, it's a gradual shift. It's a realization. And for me, and this is also where the research would probably support me, is that swift or a radical shift to renewable sources of energy is something that caters or operates at the higher level. But circular economy, adopting and embracing circular economy, is something that caters to all the hierarchies in the society. But that's just not it. There are many challenges ahead of it. And one of the challenges being that people who deal in the alternatives that circular economy gives need to have market accessibility, need to have job security, need to have social security, need to have market accessibility. And the policy position over that is not clear. There are so many companies that now endorse the concept of circular economy in India, because circular economy is one concept where you will see the maximum amount of, or even not the maximum, but a large scope of public-private partnerships. There are so many not-for-profit organizations in India that have taken the lead in terms of recycling waste, generating awareness around solid waste management. There can be a lot that India can take inspiration from. Like Canada recently, in the year 2021, came up with a bill, the carbon neutral tax bill. And then there's the concept of carbon pricing, in which there is a certain amount of price that is affixed with activities that generate carbon or emit carbon in any form. Now, all of these initiatives circle their way back to circular economy, because ultimately circular economy is about decarbonizing. It's about neutralizing. It's about having a model that sustains the life systems and protects the environment and the society and mitigates the sort of combats climate change in its own way. So like I said, it again comes back to the fact that it cannot exist in isolation. Another point that I wanted to raise, which is unique to the position of India, is that I was researching on because even during working on the working paper, there was a point where I had to study about the absorption capacity of the civil society organizations and their ability to deliver on the front of their promise of circular economy. But the carbon footprint in India is something that reeks of inequality in our society as such, and it shows about who controls the resources. It shows about the monopolization, and it also shows about the fact that it's the upper half of the society that produces has more carbon footprint than the larger lower half of the society, if I may just say it in broader terms. So we need to deal with the problem of inequality. We need to deal with such issues before we talk about unanimous and an equitable impact and application of circular economy in India. There are solid waste management rules. There is extended producer liability at place. There is awareness. There is budgetary allocation. There is the scope of dry waste that needs to be segregated. There is interjection of carbon sequestration that absorbs carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and sort of balances the emission part and reduces the waste dumpings that are there outside of important cities that impairs the ecosystem to a large extent. So all of these contributing factors have to be working in tandem with each other for circular economy to be a reality in India. And there's a long way to go. Which factor contributes the most, whether it's the carbon pricing factor, whether it's the carbon sequestration system that has scientific proof of reducing carbon emissions, whether it's the working on the inequality front, or it's the civil society organizations that take the core of it. We've already established that equitable living and equity is something that lies at the heart of a circular economy. We need to see that which factor contributes the most, and there has to be a system. There has to be. I'm not proposing a legislation or anything, but I'm just saying that all these factors have to be in line, have to be in tandem with each other for circular economy to be a reality. Having said that, the local bodies and the machinery that the government, that the central government or the state governments established, they also need to be nourished with this awareness of this alternative model. People need to be made realize that there is an alternative sustainable model that is economically viable and has the potential to generate employment in that regard, but it comes with a price. And what is that price? It's making lifestyle changes. It's adopting it's like small things, switching to jute bags or using those alternative products that do not have the elements of plastic in them. And that's exactly what many of the companies that are endorsing the idea of circular economy, invest in research and development in that regard. So yes, there is a lot of need in terms of awareness that's been made, but the point of inequality at large cannot be ignored. And circular economy is something that should signify equality and should not signify a system that only the rich can afford, or it's the rich that stands to benefit from it. It should be a chance for everybody to come on a single platform or on a common platform, because everybody is a crucial stakeholder to make it a reality. So I think I'll end my humble submission on this note. And I would once again thank you for the other co-panelists for adding to my knowledge on this extremely crucial and relevant topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Simran, for sharing your learning. And I'm sure it's been a great, insightful learning across the whole span that you spent working on this project. Would you like to share with us what change it has brought in your perspective as a citizen with respect to supporting practices, like waste management, which is a huge problem in many countries, including India?
Like I already pointed out, waste management, we have a series of rules like the solid waste management rules, and that heavily involves the role of municipalities in India. These are the rules that undergo regular changes as per the developments and as per the international practices. And this is something that I've discussed on this platform, that, introducing a ban on plastic is something that was done in line with what the international position of India is. Now, introducing a ban on plastic obviously has a direct impact on solid waste management, because if we see the whole gamut of solid waste management, plastic comprises to be one of the most essential components. And people need to understand that there's so much scope, and this is where the experts can come in and like I already said, that people have devoted half of their lives to making people aware about the scope of dry waste and its segregation and how it can be removed and reduced and how carbon can be utilized, how the negative effects of waste can actually be utilized in a manner that ushers or advances the cardinal principles of circular economy. So yes, solid waste management has a direct equation, direct parallel with circular economy in that regard. But having said that, there are infrastructural problems, there are financial problems, there are problems, that, maybe the local bodies are not taking a lead in that. There is lack of awareness or there is lack of sensitization when it comes to the effective implementation of solid waste management rules.
Thank you, Simran. We wish you all the best. And now we have a couple of questions for our speakers. And the first question is especially to Andre. Andre, do you see enough awareness of policy instruments and incentives for advancing circular economy practices in society, in any society? That is knowledge on how to implement, such policy instruments as well as incentives needed for circular economy. Do you think there is enough awareness of it?
Among the general population, you mean, or in general?
In your experience, say in your country where you are, where you have been familiar with all the practices of circular economy.
I would say that people are not really that aware of how much industry we have, what sort of impact it has in Slovenia, how much it contributes to energy use, resource extraction, GHG emissions, and things like that. I mean, specifically in Slovenia, our discourse prevails that it really comes down to giving all the, I would say, politicians tend to give all can't find the right word right now. Basically, they're all just blaming the little guy, to put it bluntly, and very little on the industry. And on the other hand, I think that even when it comes to the people that are creating policies in Slovenia, also they don't seem to be very keen on adopting more progressive policies, looking at what's going on abroad, trying to bring that to Slovenia to push further our industry. I think that this awareness is at least in Slovenia still very much lacking, unfortunately. But for instance, I don't know, seeing Netherlands saying that they will cut their resource use by half until 2030. We see that there's progress going on around the world, no? Basically, but unfortunately not in Slovenia yet.
Okay. Melissa, how would you reflect on it?
Could you please rephrase the question, please, Rajni?
So my question is related to awareness of policy instruments as well as incentive schemes, which are already there by any government in any nation. Do you think among people, especially entrepreneurs who are planning to get into the business, or people like NGOs, they have sufficient awareness of all those incentive schemes as well as the policy instruments to promote circular economy in a society?
Okay, thank you. In my experience, I guess yes. I saw different things when I was traveling. I have experience working in, as I said, in Latin American countries and also in Germany and some European countries. And I see that, yes, I saw many people, many entrepreneurs especially, that are really coming up with such great ideas, brilliant ideas that are connected to what the circular economy demands, because they saw that there is huge benefits out of it, and also because of the legislation now is switching towards these requirements and enforcement in the future years. And currently, here in Germany, for example, we have already enforcement of some kind of laws. But nevertheless, I see that also there is a huge gap, because as there are new laws coming up, new requirements, so it's necessary to include, as I said previously, education and communicate clear these technical plans and strategies that the local government or national government has. I saw that sometimes there are very good ideas, but there are not really good results, because this is not, or the idea was not really planned from the beginning with the complete clear idea what circular economy is, or how they really can connect or tackle the problem. So I saw both examples. There are huge good examples, very good examples, but also some that can really be improved because of these problems, no? The education, the awareness of the people, and also the clarity of laws and regulations.
Okay, thank you so much. And Violeta, may I request you to share few words, because this is the last webinar of the year on circular economy.
Mhm.
Would you love to share your reflections or your perspective on it?
Indeed. And every meeting, every session is better than the other. So I hope we're going to continue with that, because the messages are getting clearer and clearer, and more is also transparent where the missing links are, and where are really the obstacles that need to be addressed. So I think circular economy is definitely part of the solution for our future society. I think EU has stated it, but I agree with Andrei. I've been lecturing about that a lot, that as much as SDGs on a UN level and also the Green Deal on the European level, we need more honesty in the implementation. Andrei was very clear, calling upon the politicians to be much more honest and dedicated, but also companies. And I do believe that once we create a safe framework within which everybody feels comfortable that actually, when they make this step, the people will respond, people meaning customers, meaning partners, meaning in general society, we might see a more exponential flow. And I agree with all the speakers that this is absolutely necessary. I mean, we don't have a choice anymore. So we will continue to bring people together on this topic. And Rajni, sorry I was late for the first couple of minutes, but we really hope to bring all these great stories, very concrete presentations together in a book for the next year. So all the speakers are invited to contribute, just to show others as well how many really very concrete, tangible projects and actions have been already implemented all around the world. And every session really brought impressive proofs that people are no longer just talking about it, people are living this more and more. So, but of course, we're at the beginning of this cycle of change. So we need to just continue to be vocal and to be very much present with our actions. Thanks, Rajni. And thank you, Rajni, for incredible leadership. I mean, people you were able to bring together were really fascinating, including with today's speakers. And we are just getting richer and richer through these presentations, and more through what you were able to put together. You gave us language, and you gave us the confidence that this is not just a dreamer's world, but it's a real tangible world where also a new economy is emerging.
Thank you so much, Violeta. And we request all participants, if they have something to say, please feel free to write in the comment box, chat box. Otherwise, we are proceeding towards wrapping up this session. If there is anything to say, please feel free. If you have any question, anything to ask from the speakers, any suggestion for Ecocivilization on our webinar that we have conducted, any advice that you want to give, any piece of advice, we welcome that. So if there is no question, then we would be happy to wrap up this session by thanking all our speakers, panel speakers, experts who have been with us for sharing their immense knowledge, especially Melissa, Andre, Simran, for their insightful presentations, for bringing their expertise. Simran, especially for her learning through this session and making this session so interactive, relatable, and worthwhile. We are also very thankful to our participants for their active participation. And please keep visiting www.ecocivilization.eu for further events and their details. Thank you so much once again for joining us today, and we will see you next time. Till then, take care. Bye-bye. Thank you so much once again to our speakers.
Have a great end of year 2021 and get ready. 2022 will be an incredible year. A lot of changes, and let's be on the right side of the history. All the best.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.